Hey guys, what's up? It's Connor Mitchell, head whiz of Dragon Rider Network, and today I'm here reviewing the Canon 18-135 STM lens. So anyway, let's get into it. So I got this lens a few weeks ago, and I am finally getting into my full-time review, so that way I can let you guys know my thoughts on this lens and let you guys know whether I think it's a good investment or not. So Canon has on their website that this lens is estimated at an MSRP of about $550 in retail. However though, if you go on to Amazon.com and a few other websites, you will find it for a lot cheaper, like I did. Links and everything else that you can find will be in the description below to take you to where you can find this lens for really cheap prices. Now, to be quite honest, I'm not really keen on doing camera or camera lens reviews, so I'm going to get all of the technical specifications out of the way to get started with, so that way all of you tech geeks and other photographer whatevers can have your satisfaction and decide from those whether it's a good lens or not. So here we go. Technical aspects of this 18-135mm STM lens. This lens goes from 18-135mm, as the name would imply. It is an EF-S mount, so that way it is for crop censored cameras on Canon, and so we are not going to be seeing any full frame action for this lens. The aperture range when zooming goes from f3.5 to f5.6, much like the 18-55mm kit. There are 16 lens elements in 12 groups. I'll be quite honest, I'm still trying to figure out what that means. The closest focusing distance is 1.3 feet or 3.9 meters. Not exactly macro, but still pretty close. The 18-55 is actually closer, getting 9.8 inches or 0.25 meters. The filter size is 67mm, quite a bit bigger than the 58mm on the 18-55mm lens. And the weight of this lens comes at a mighty 480 grams, whereas the 18-55 comes at a mere 200 grams. Now that we have all that crazy technical stuff out of the way, now it's on to the fun stuff. Basically doing what I know about photography and know about each of these lenses, the Canon 18-135mm STM is a joy to take around compared to the 18-55mm lens. When I first got my DSLR, I read a lot of reviews that said the 18-55mm lens was basically an all-around lens. It's not great at anything, but it's not terrible at anything. The 18-135 holds even more true to that, and you have an extended zoom. This obviously allows you to get more dynamic shots where you're getting very close up or very far away. The one thing that threw me through a loop was definitely the focusing ring, which doesn't move any of the external parts, which is different from the 18-55, so it felt as though I was having less control over the focus, but once you get equipped to it over time, it becomes an absolute joy. This lens obviously is boasting Canon's new STM technology, which allows practically silent autofocusing, and if you have the T4i or the T5i, it allows you to do pretty much the same thing as autofocus as camcorders can do while shooting video on your camera. And the lens itself has a lock, so that way you can keep it from telephotoing out. But I really found I didn't need this at all because the lens basically has zero lens creep, which is really, really nice. But the lens lock is still a nice thing to have. Now let's get into photography with this lens. Taking photos with this lens is really, really nice. Having the extended zoom compared to the old 18-55 kit lens is really helpful, especially if you want to get very distant shots as well as very close-up shots and macro shots. Believe it or not, I'm not that good of a photographer, but all the photos I took with this lens pretty much came out clear and crisp, and zero color distortion was seen, at least from my side. And to me, the biggest help for making sure photos came out clear and crisp was definitely the addition of the stabilizer. And to this day, I still do not understand why they added a switch, because who in their right mind would actually turn off stabilization? When you're taking photos at 18mm, of course there is going to be a little bit of barrel distortion, but that is expected with every lens that goes to 18mm or above. Now, the STM motor really does help when trying to take silent photos. However though, the thing is, in live view mode, it isn't really that fast, especially when you compare it to the 18-55mm lens or even the 50mm lens. However though, in quick view, it of course is lightning fast and incredibly quiet. So kind of to wrap up on my photography portion of this, without being whatever the equivalent of an audiophile for photographers is, this lens really does take amazing photos, and I have been impressed all the way through. I mean, there has really been no disappointment for me at this point. But then again, I'm not a professional photographer. Now, video. This is where I get a little bit more expertise, and this is really what I got the lens for. Video, like photos, looks absolutely amazing, and of course, in my mind, this is a huge thanks to stabilization. Stabilization really does help the video look incredibly smooth, and of course, for even the slight little tremors that you get, if you put it through Final Cut Pro X, then you get what looks to be almost a steady cam shot, which is absolutely brilliant. Now at first, the different focus ring had me through a loop, but as soon as I got used to it, it made for a really good follow focus, because at that point you could really get good at tracking subjects as they were moving towards or away from the camera. Another thing about that focusing ring, it makes it much smoother when focusing in video, so that way you don't have like that mechanical jitter that you often see when you're focusing with the other lenses. You have this very nice smooth focus that goes from afar to close up. I was completely blown away at how good this lens could handle video, and I of course would be using it for projects years from now, hopefully, if I still have the camera and the lens in great condition. And quick side note, if you guys want to see more video that was shot specifically with this lens, go on my channel and search up Ocean City 2013, where you will find an entire video where I shot completely with the 18-135 and the wide angle attachments that I did a review on earlier last week. So overall, what are my thoughts on this lens? It's really hard to complain about something that really does everything you need it to and most of what you want it to. I have to say, other than the slightly slow focusing of the STM when you're in live view, and sometimes it's not exactly perfect, especially since in macro shots it can be a little bit off and you could be too close to the subject without knowing it. Other than that, it's not a bad lens. Now, if you are just buying a DSLR, say the Canon Rebel T5i, I'd recommend starting off with the 18-55mm, because at an estimated price of about $500 for this one lens, I'd hold off until later, by the time you get maybe a little bit more experience with your 18-55 and how that would work. But give it about a year, and then down the road, if you're a photographer, or especially in my case, a videographer, you could really use this lens to its full advantage. So if you're looking to upgrade to a new lens for your Canon DSLR for video, I'd recommend going with the 18-135 STM lens every time. And if you're thinking about getting a DSLR in the future, give this lens a fair shot. You never know. So anyway guys, that is my review of the Canon 18-135 STM lens. If you have any comments or questions, leave them in the comments section below. Also be sure to check out all of my social links down below, and of course, if you haven't already, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and remember to subscribe. So anyway guys, I have been Connor Mitchell, and I will catch you guys at the next video. Talk to you then.